You are contributing to your 401k. The balance is going up. You are doing the right thing. So why am I about to tell you that a percentage of everything you have ever put in there is being quietly taken from you every single year? And you probably have no idea. There is a number inside your 401k that most people have never looked at. It is not your contribution rate. It is not your balance. It is a small percentage, usually somewhere between 0.03 and 2%, that gets charged on your total balance automatically every year, whether your investments go up or down. It is called an expense ratio. And if yours is on the high end, which millions of people's are, it is costing you a genuinely shocking amount of money over time. Not in a vague, theoretical way, in a specific, calculable, completely preventable way. My name is Rich Future You. Today, we find your expense ratio and fix it. Subscribe and hit the like button if this one saves you money.
Let me explain what an expense ratio actually is, because the name makes it sound more complicated than it is. When you invest in a fund inside your 401k, whether that is a mutual fund, a target date fund, or an index fund, that fund has to be managed by someone. That someone charges a fee for managing it. The expense ratio is that fee, expressed as a percentage of your total investment in that fund. So if you have $100,000 in a fund with a 1% expense ratio, you are paying $1,000 a year in fees. Not once, every single year. Even in years when your investments lose money, the fee is guaranteed. Your returns are not. Here is the thing that makes this particularly insidious. You never actually see this fee. Nobody sends you a bill. Nobody takes money out of your account as a visible transaction. The fee is deducted from the fund's returns before they hit your account. It is invisible, which is exactly why most people never notice it. And that invisibility is exactly how fund companies want it. Because if you saw a $1,000 bill from your 401k provider every January, you would immediately ask whether it was worth it. But since you never see the bill, most people never ask the question.
Let me show you the real cost of a high expense ratio. And I want you to actually feel this number, not just hear it. Let's take two investors. Both invest $500 a month for 30 years into their 401k. Both get an identical 7% average annual return from the market. The only difference is the expense ratio of the fund they choose. Investor A chooses a low-cost index fund with a 0.03% expense ratio. That is 0.03%. Common in Vanguard, Fidelity, and Schwab index funds. After 30 years, Investor A has approximately $590,000. Investor B chooses an actively managed mutual fund with a 1% expense ratio. Same contributions, same market return, 30 years. Investor B has approximately $480,000.
That difference? Over $110,000. Gone. Not to a market crash, not to a bad investment decision, to a fee that Investor B never even noticed because it was never visible as a line item. If you have a 1.5% expense ratio, which is not unusual in employer-sponsored 401k plans that have not been recently updated, the gap grows even larger. We are talking $150,000 or more over a career, enough to buy a house or retire 2 or 3 years earlier. Lost to a percentage point of fees. This is why expense ratios matter, not as an abstract concept, but as real money that either stays in your account or quietly disappears into someone else's. Okay, so now the most important part. How do you actually find your expense ratio right now? Because knowing the problem exists without fixing it is just stress. Step 1. Log into your 401k account. This is your employer's retirement plan. Fidelity, Vanguard, Schwab, Empower, Principal, TIAA, wherever your company holds your plan. Step 2. Find your investment elections or fund holdings. This is the list of funds your contributions are currently going into. There's usually a link that says something like View Your Investments or Investment Options. Step 3. Click on each fund you are invested in and look for the expense ratio.
It is also sometimes called the annual fee, the management fee, or the net expense ratio. It will be a small percentage, something like 0.15% or 0.85% or 1.2%. Step 4, write it down or screenshot it. You are looking for this number for every fund you are currently invested in, weighted by how much of your balance is in each one. If you cannot find it inside your 401k portal, you can Google the fund name followed by expense ratio and find it instantly. Every publicly available fund publishes this number.
Now that you have your number, what does it actually mean? Here is a simple framework. Under 0.10% is excellent. This is the range you find in most major index funds. Vanguard's total stock market index fund is 0.03%. Fidelity's equivalent is 0.015%. If you are in this range, you are paying almost nothing and keeping almost all of your returns. Between 0.10 and 0.50% is acceptable. You are paying a small amount, but not egregiously. Still worth investigating whether a lower-cost alternative is available in your plan. Between 0.50 and 1% is costly. This range significantly impacts your long-term returns and should be switched if alternatives exist. Above 1% is a red flag. Most actively managed funds sit here.
The research is overwhelming. The vast majority of actively managed funds do not outperform low-cost index funds over a 10-plus year period. You are paying premium prices for below-average results. So what should you actually invest in? If your 401k offers these options, they are the gold standard of low-cost investing. Look for total stock market index funds or S&P 500 index funds from Vanguard, Fidelity, or Schwab. These are broadly diversified, passively managed funds that track the overall market. They consistently outperform most actively managed funds over time at a fraction of the cost. If your plan offers a target date index fund, for example, a 2055 fund if you plan to retire around that year, check its expense ratio. Vanguard's target date index funds typically have expense ratios around 0.1 to 0.15%. These are reasonable and require zero maintenance from you. If your employer's 401k does not offer any low-cost index fund options, which unfortunately does happen, this matters for a different reason. You can still use your Roth IRA for better fund options, while keeping enough in the 401k to capture the employer match. And you can flag the fund options to your HR department. Employers can and do update their fund lineup when employees push back. The bottom line, you want to own the market cheaply. Total market index funds do exactly that. Here is the question everyone has at this point. If I switch funds inside my 401k, are there tax consequences or penalties? The answer is no, and this is one of the best features of a 401k. Switching between funds inside a 401k is not a taxable event. You are not selling investments in a regular brokerage account where capital gains taxes apply. You are reallocating within a tax-advantaged account. No taxes, no penalties, no exit fees in most cases. Here is how to do it. Log into your 401k. Find the option labeled Change Investments, Rebalance, or Exchange Funds. Select the high-cost fund you want to move out of and the low-cost fund you want to move into. Confirm the transaction? Done. Also, update your future contribution elections so new money goes into the lower-cost fund going forward. This is a separate setting from the fund exchange in most plans. It is labeled Change Contribution Elections or Change Investment Elections. The whole process usually takes under 15 minutes. The impact on your retirement balance can be 6 figures. One last thing that is important to understand. Your employer chooses which funds are available in your 401k plan. And while employers have a legal obligation to act in your best financial interest, called a fiduciary duty, the reality is that many 401k plans are loaded with high-cost funds from providers who have relationships with the employer or the plan administrator. This is not necessarily malicious. It is often just the result of a plan that was set up years ago and never updated. But the consequence falls on you, the employee, whose retirement balance is quietly eroded by fees that could have been avoided. If your plan only offers high-cost options,
You have a few moves. Capture the match first, always. Then max your Roth IRA with low-cost index funds at Vanguard, Fidelity, or Schwab. Come back to the 401k above the match only if the options improve.
You have worked hard for every dollar in that 401k. You deserve to keep as much of it as possible. An expense ratio is not an unavoidable cost of investing. It is a choice. A choice between a fund that charges you almost nothing and a fund that charges you a percentage point every year, whether you win or lose. Find your expense ratio this week. If it is above 0.50%, find the lowest cost alternative your plan offers and switch. The 15 minutes it takes could add 6 figures to your retirement. The 401k audit worksheet in the description helps you find your ratio, calculate the real 30-year cost, and identify your best available alternatives in your specific plan. Link below. Subscribe for a new video every Tuesday and Thursday. Rich Future You is building something real.